Hello everyone, welcome back. This is another video in my ROS tutorial series. In this video we're going to go through how to make a graphical user interface, a GUI, for your ROS application. If you haven't already, I highly recommend you watch my last video that goes over how to set up Qt Creator with ROS and set up your ROS workspace. If you have any questions, you can go ahead and post them in the YouTube comments below, or open an issue on my GitHub repo here. After you finish this video, and if you create new extensions, you think of how to make anything a little bit clearer, or you come up with some new neat demos for the example, you can go ahead and create a pull request here and I'll look it over, and hopefully we can get that merged so others can have a few more examples to work off of. So that's enough with the introductions. Let's go ahead and get started. Again, you should have already set up your Catkin workspace, so we'll go ahead and cd into our Catkin workspace source directory. Then we need to copy, or then we need to clone the repo into our source directory. So git clone, then there you go. I've already copied it, so it should, so I get an error saying it already exists, but hopefully that will copy fine for you. While we're here, we can go ahead and get a ROS core started. We're going to need that. There we go. And now we can open Qt Creator. We already have our project set up from last time, except this time now you see that we have the template package from last time, and this time we also have the template GUI package. So here it is. We should be able to go ahead and click build, and yep, it built already. So we want to go then down to projects, run, and you want to make sure that the Hello GUI node is selected. That will be in your Catkin workspace devel lib template GUI package. You can see the Hello GUI node executable. So we'll run that. And now to run it, we can click the run and debug button. And right now you can see the GUI doesn't do a whole lot. That's because it's waiting for a message to be published. It's waiting for another chatter message similar to what we did in the last video. So for convenience, I've added another publisher to this package. So we can do ROS run template GUI package. And then you can see, if we hit tab a couple times, you can see the things that are available. We'll run talker. And you can see that the talker is publishing hello world and the number of times that it's published it so far. And you can see that our GUI is receiving those and displaying them here for us. We also have another button here that says say hi. This button will publish another chatter message under a different topic that we can also listen to. So if we do ROS topic list, you can see the messages that are or the topics that are being published. So we see that the talker is publishing chatter, and we also see the Hello GUI node is publishing chatter. So let's do ROS topic echo Hello GUI chatter. Okay. So every time I click say hi, it will publish a new chatter message. And I can actually change the value here, and it'll change the number after the hello world. So this is what we're aiming to create. And from here, I'll go through and show you how to actually create this. So let's go ahead and close that. And I'm going to go through and we're going to actually regenerate all the bits. So let's delete these. Well, actually, before we do that, let's take a quick look at the CMake lists here. So this is pretty similar to the last one we had. It just depends. The ROS CPP and standard messages, pretty simple. But you'll notice that we need actually a few Qt includes. So they're there, and these are the basic ones that you pretty much need these for most basic GUI applications. If you need other ones, there's graphing libraries and all kinds of fun things. You can add them here. And below here, you really shouldn't need to modify much. That's, I would say, is a more advanced user thing to do. And just remember that if you need to add additional ROS depends, you will also need to add them as depends here in the package.xml. Okay, so let's go ahead and get started. We'll show containing folder, move to trash, move to trash, and I think I'm going to leave. Oh, here we go. There it is. Move to trash. Okay. So this is basically a fresh package now. And let's go ahead and create a new one. So, yep, close all the things we have open. So the first thing we want to do is actually create our GUI. So we want to create a new file or project. So we want this to be a Qt thing. We want this to be a Qt designer form class. This will create both the UI file that we can edit and actually design our GUI, and it will also create an associated C++ and header file. So that's the one we want. And we want I think we want a widget. A widget is something that can be inserted in within another widget or in a main window. A main window is the kind of thing that you would normally think of with the drop-down menus at the top and that sort of thing. So this is a more complete application, but this is just a little simple thing, so we'll stick with widget. Next, so we want to call this the hello GUI. And the ROS convention is file name should be all lowercase with underscores in between, and class names should be camel cased like this. So we will do that to do that. All right. Set the path to the include directory, template GUI package, open, next, and great. So now you can see our empty GUI that we're going to fill out later. We'll go back to the edit window. One thing, Qt by default puts all the header and the CPP in the same place, so we actually need to move this to So we actually need to move this to the template GUI package source directory, again, to follow the ROS convention. Okay, so if we go back here, we can see that everything is in the right place. Okay, we need to create one more thing. We actually need to create the file that is going to our top level CPP, our main CPP function. So we will just create a C++ source file, and this will go in our nodes directory. And this is going to be called the hello GUI node.cpp. Next. Finish. Finish. And I got a little over ambitious, and I actually deleted our talker, so I'm just going to go ahead and create a new one there. So this one doesn't have an associated class with it. This will just another source file. So we'll create the talker.cpp. Okay. So I'm going to put that there, and I'm just going to bring in the talker code. If you don't understand this, again, go ahead and watch the last video. This is pretty much a direct copy of what we did there. We did do a few things with namespacing, which we'll get late to in a minute. But anyway, okay, so here's our hello GUI node. We need to go ahead and create this. So I'm going to bring in the basic boilerplate Qt stuff here. Okay, so let's go ahead and, let's go ahead and talk about a little bit what this is doing. So this is doing the ROS init. So this is initializing your ROS node. It's calling it Hello GUI node. And in this case, it's creating a autonomous node. So all that means is it will create the Hello GUI node, and it will call it Hello GUI node with some random number after it. The advantage of doing that is you can have multiple nodes with the same name. This is often useful in GUIs because normally GUIs are kind of a passive thing that just sort of listen and display data, which you might want running on multiple computers on your system. But to keep things simple, we're going to make this one not autonomous. Okay. We're going to declare a Q application called A. This takes the arguments from our main application, or our main function here. We're going to create a Hello GUI window, or a Hello GUI object. We're going to set its title to whatever this ROS node is called. So if you call it something else through ROS launch other than Hello GUI node, it will automatically show up in the title. We're going to show the window and execute. So this is basically boilerplate for pretty much any Qt application. You're not going to need to edit this much. You might change the name. That's about it. But it'll basically look like this, and you'll change this from Hello GUI to whatever your application is. But you will see that we're getting errors that ROS isn't included. So let's go ahead and just include ROS in our Hello GUI here. And that should take care of the error because we've included it there. Whoops. There we go. Yes, so all our errors are gone. Okay, so before we go any further, let's build this and just make sure that everything is looking all right. So we'll click execute, and we should just get a blank window that's called Hello GUI node. So great. This is a good place to start. Let's start adding some functionality. Okay. So first thing we can do is start adding things to our GUI. So I want to add a couple labels. So let's do label. All right, and we want another label. So we want a label called chatter, and this one's just going to sit there, and it's not going to change. So I'm just going to go ahead and give this an object name called chatter label. And this one is the one that we actually want to change, and that should be called chatter. Okay. So you can see that this is kind of messy, and like if I resize the GUI and stuff, things don't change. So that's no good. So let's put in a what's called a layout. So I'm going to do a horizontal layout. And this is basically just like a table. If you've ever done old school like HTML programming, you might have done like a table layout. That's pretty similar to how Qt works. So now you can see that they're nicely organized, but you can see that they still don't change with the entire GUI. So what we want to do is select our main window here and lay it out vertically, and this will cause everything to scale nicely. Okay, so we'll make that nice and small, nice and tight there. And I'm going to go ahead and call this, or just put that in with a couple dashes just to signify that we haven't got any data yet. So this is what our GUI will look like by default. We can go back and we can hit build and run, and you'll see that our GUI has changed. Okay? So the next thing, we need to start listening for some topics. So let's look at our header here. We're going to need a couple things to do this. Just like before, we're going to need a subscriber and a ROS node handle. Okay, so if you know anything, if you've already done any basic ROS, you know that this is the basic way that we can receive messages. One thing that we're also going to need is a queue timer. And what this is going to do is basically tell the GUI when to check for new ROS messages. Qt is event driven, so much like ROS. So like whenever an event happens in Qt, it will trigger an action that can happen, and anytime in between actions, the GUI will be free for the user to interact with. So if we do something like an infinite while loop, it will cause our GUI just to freeze. So if we do while ROS OK, like we did in the previous example, the GUI will just freeze and it will never allow the user to interact. So what we want to do is set a ROS timer that will call ROS spin once periodically, and in between it will allow the user to interact with the GUI. Okay. One more thing that we will need to do is include standard messages string, because that's what we're going to be subscribing to. Okay. We also need to create, as I said, we're going to hook our ROS timer up to our to a spin once function, just like we did in the previously, which will cause ROS to do its thing. So I'm going to create a new function to do that. So you'll notice this strange macro here, this slots macro. This tells Qt that is something that you can actually hook up a signal to. Qt will emit a signal whenever the timer times out, which will allow you to hook it to this function. You'll see how we do that in just a second. So let's go to the hello GUI node.cpp now. The hello GUI.cpp. Okay. So first thing we need to do is we've created a ROS node handle pointer. We didn't actually create an instance of a ROS node handle. So what we're going to do is we're going to reset our node handle so that this will create a new, this will make the pointer point to a new ROS node handle. And you'll see that we set it with this parameter with the tilde. This just means that it is in its own namespace. If you don't know much about that, I recommend looking it up on the ROS information. But it basically says that the topic will list when you publish a topic, it will list where the topic is coming from, and if you subscribe to a topic, it will subscribe to topics in the same namespace by default. Hopefully that'll make a little more sense as we go forward. If not, again, I highly recommend looking it up. So, okay. So now we're going to set up our ROS timer. So our ROS timer, we set it as a new Qt timer. So we've created a new timer that our ROS timer pointer points to. We connect the ROS timer's signal to timeout to the slot spin once. That's the slot that we declared earlier. And then we go ahead and say start with 100 milliseconds delay in between. So every 100 milliseconds, the GUI will refresh. We need to define actually this spin once function now, so I will add that here. So while ROS OK if ROS OK spin once, else application quit. So if ROS is not OK, if you do Control-C on the application or something in the terminal, that will cause the application to close nicely. Otherwise, it will just call ROS to spin once and get new topics and that sort of thing. So this is the basic setup. We haven't set up our publisher or our subscribers yet, but let's just make sure that this compiles. And we'll run it just the same. Everything runs, nothing crashes. But again, nothing is happening. And you can see that we're actually still publishing Hello World. So we do want to see something go on there. So let's go ahead and close the Hello GUI node. Great. All right, so now let's set up a publisher, or let's set up a subscriber. So the first thing we need to do is go back to our header, and we need to create a callback just like we did before. And this is not a slot, this is a regular function. So chatter callback, which takes a string as a parameter. And then we'll go back to our GUI, or our CPP file, GUI CPP file, and we'll add the chatter callback. So that's that. So what we want to do here is take whatever string we get in the message and set it to that UI element that we received. So I'm going to do so what I'm going to do here is get the element. So this is our element that we want to get. This is returns the string from the message that we received as a C string. Qt will actually want it as what's called a Q string. So we need to call this function Q string from standard string. It will convert our standard string to a Q string, and then we're going to save it in this Q string message variable. And then what we're going to do here is UI.chatter.setText.Q string message. It's as simple as that. So we'll hit build again, save. Okay. So as we run this, we created our callback. This still won't work because we didn't set up any subscriber, or we didn't actually set up our subscribers. So let's go back here and create a ROS subscriber, which we've already done. Then we need to come up here and actually tell it to and actually set it up. So I'm going to go ahead and copy this. I'm going to go ahead and copy this in here. All right. So this just says, tells our node handle to subscribe to a string message on this listen topic variable. The queue size is going to be 1, which is I recommend for GUIs and data displays. This just says how many messages you want to buffer. So if you receive more messages before you display them, it will add them to a buffer. And this just says we want the buffer size to be 1, so only display the latest message. Don't queue them up. I recommend this for variable, or for live data display GUIs like this. And then we want to say then we want to connect it to the callback that we want to set up, which in this case is hello GUI chatter callback. And then you see this operator, this. This is an object-oriented thing that just says this is pointing that chatter callback belongs to this object, which is, in this case, the hello GUI. Okay. The listen topic here is set from the parameter server. So we tell the node handle to listen for a string parameter on the listen topic parameter. It sets it to the listen topic variable. And if it's not set, it will set it to talker/chatter. And you see that I have the leading slash here, which tells this to not look in this node's namespace. This says look in the root namespace talker/chatter. Okay, so we'll hit compile, save all, and run, and it should work this time. There we go. So that's the chatter message that we received. Okay, so this is how you can receive and display data on your ROS Qt GUI. Okay, but what if you want to send data? So the next thing we want to do to send data is actually add a button. So we can add a push button here. Whoops. Actually, this one should have been a form layout, but it's okay. A form layout basically gives you a 2x2 grid. I think that's what I did in the actual example, but that's all right. All right, so we'll add another horizontal layout. We'll add a push button to it. This is very difficult to add. There we go. Push button. We'll tell it to say hi, and then we'll give it a name, the hi button. And we also want it, just so we can say something a little more interesting than just hi, let's add what's called a spin box. We'll add that there. And then we'll call that the hi number. Okay? Close that up, get it nice and tight. There we go. Click build, just to make sure everything works. Like build early and often. We can check that the changes in our GUI were reflected. So we have these, but again, you can see we have them, but they don't do anything just yet. Okay? If we look at our ROS topic echo that we started earlier, they don't do anything. Okay? So let's extend this to actually publish something. Okay, so we want to create, again, a publisher. This should look pretty familiar after you've created a basic publisher and subscriber in ROS. Okay. So now this publisher needs to be set up in our main function, or in our CPP file. So similar to how we did this last one, we're going to do a new one. So we're going to publish on the hello topic, and we're going to keep a buffer of, again, just one. So, and we're going to get the parameter from the parameter server, and we're going to call it chatter. And you'll notice that this one doesn't have a leading slash, which just means that by default, it's going to be in the hello GUI namespace / chatter. Okay, and you'll see that when we actually publish. Okay, so the publisher is set up. Now we need to do something. We need to actually link up what happens when the button is pressed. So it's actually kind of neat. It's very easy to do in Qt. If you click the GUI, if you go back to your GUI page and you right-click the button and just say go to slot, and you can see a bunch of different actions that happened, but we just want to go on clicked. So when the button is clicked, it'll create a function for us right here. So it'll say hello GUI that on button clicked, on hi button clicked. Great. And now we can create a very simple publisher. So again, this is just like our last thing. So it creates a message, it fills it with hello world, except this time instead of just a counter, it actually looks at the UI variable. So it looks at the UI /hi num / value. So whatever value is set in this hi num field will be published will be added to that string. We fill our message with the string that we created through the string stream here, and then we publish it. So let's go ahead and do that. Okay, say hi, we click, and we should actually see hello world 0. And if I change this, that should change. Okay. We can add one more functionality. You can actually cause this button to do things back in the GUI. And the way to do that is to do, so UI.hiNum dot set value. So we want to set the value of hiNum to whatever the value of hiNum is now plus 1. So let's get the value of what hiNum is now. hiNum value plus 1. Okay, great. Let's stop our last run and run another. And if we click it now, you can see that it increments the value. And on our subscriber, our ROS topic listener over here, you can see that it's published. And we're also receiving hello world from this, and our GUI is basically complete. Before we move on, I want to swing back around to the anonymous thing here. So you can see now that if I, let's open a new tab, ROS topic list. So you can see that we have hello GUI node chatter. And actually, if I try to run another one of these, so if I do ROS run template GUI package hello GUI node, you can see that we can't run it because there's another one of the same name. And it might be nice to have multiple instances of the GUI running at any given time, right? Because you want multiple stations to be able to view the data. The way to handle that is to add this parameter to your ROS init, this ROS init options autonomous name. So we'll go ahead and do that. And then we can run it here. And now you can see that it has this name with the random string after it, or the random numbers after it. And if I run this, we can actually have multiple instances of it, right? One thing you will notice is ROS topic list. It's also publishing these topics on the private namespace. So you can either set those manually, or you can have it be a non-autonomous node, or you can have it, as the random string if you want. But now we can listen to one of them. So ROS topic echo hello GUI node 50. Oh geez, 8. So we're going to listen to that one. So if I click this, we don't get anything, but if I click this one, we do get something. So that's another way you can structure it if you want. Like I said, sometimes it's nice to be able to have multiple GUIs going at the same time, but that's really a design decision up to you. I think that should about cover it for this topic. Again, if you have any questions, go ahead and post them in the comments or on my GitHub page on the Issues tab. If you have any modifications or corrections to this package, or if you want to add more neat examples to it, go ahead and make a pull request and I'll take a look at it. Otherwise, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.